Hey YouTubers, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the fuel tank on your snowblower with a Tecumseh engine. This is the snowblower I'll be doing the repair on today. It's got a 10 horsepower Tecumseh engine, and it's usually going to be the same fuel tank even if it's an 8 horsepower engine. Even if you have the newer style fuel tank where it's more round, it's still the same procedure to replace it. The reason why I'm replacing this fuel tank is because somebody had drilled a hole at the bottom of it to drain the fuel. It's not a very smart thing to do. The best way to remove the fuel from the fuel tank is to pop off the fuel line either right here or after the fuel valve and let the gas leak out. So what you're going to need to start off is a 3/8 socket. And you want to start by removing the two 3/8 bolts here that are holding the fuel tank on this bracket here. And you can see the fuel tank's getting loose. Now just basically grab the fuel tank, pull it out like this, and now pull up. Now what I'm going to do is disconnect the fuel line from the fuel tank right there. You want to grab a pair of pliers like this and go in and squeeze the clip and move it back. If you find that the fuel line is stuck on there tight, you can grab the pliers, gently hold it and just turn the tank. And now I'm just going to pull the fuel line right off. So now I've got the fuel tank right off. If there is fuel left in your fuel tank before you do this job, make sure to remove all the fuel like I showed you at the beginning of the video by pulling off the fuel line underneath the fuel tank. Now if the fuel cap's still good on the old tank, you can save it. And it's good. This one's got the old metal dish here. As long as the dish is still in there, the cap is still good. If the metal dish has broken off, then put a new gas cap on. Because if you don't, your fuel tank is not going to vent properly, your snowblower is going to run for a little while, then it's going to start sputtering. Now in this fuel tank, I'm going to save the Snow King sticker. I'm just going to grab an X-Acto knife and carefully grab the edge of the sticker. Got to be careful doing this. You don't always succeed when you do this, but it looks like I am in this case. And I'm just going to glue it on the other fuel tank that I'm using for this snowblower. Now if you had a hard time finding a new fuel tank, or you didn't have money to buy a new one, you could always try repairing the hole here. In this case, I'm just replacing the whole fuel tank because I have a lot of extra ones from snowblower engines that blew up. So here I've got my used fuel tank that I'm going to reinstall, and let's get right into that. Before you start this reinstallation, if the fuel line is hard and brittle like this one, just replace it with a new one like I did here. Sometimes I spray a bit of liquid wrench right where the fuel line goes into the fuel tank, and that makes it much easier to slide onto the connector on the fuel tank. So now with the fuel tank in hand, the first thing you want to do is connect the fuel line here to that connector. And by the way, the piece of fuel line I used here has a 1/4 inch inside diameter. And now just secure the clip right up to the top here where the connector is. By the way, this is a 9/16 hose clamp that I'm using. It's spring loaded, and this one here is a 1/2 inch clamp. So now what you want to do is hook up the fuel tank to this clip here on the engine. This clip here will go inside the grooves here on the fuel tank, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do is hook it on the bottom first. And then once you know it's in at the bottom, you can push it in and line up the holes here on the metal plate to the holes on the fuel tank. At this point, it's a good time to insert some Loctite inside the holes. The reason I'm doing that is because there's a lot of vibration on these snowblower engines, and the bolts only screw into plastic. So you got to be careful that you do not over tighten these bolts. And the Loctite will help the bolts stay in place. I'm just going to snug the bolts for now. Now that the bolts are snug, I'm just going to tighten up slightly. Remember, we're screwing into plastic, so you can easily strip the threads. So if at any moment you feel that the bolts are stripping, just stop tightening them immediately. At this point, what I'm going to do is grab the old sticker. I'm going to apply some glue at the back of it and stick it on the fuel tank that is presently on the engine. What I'm using for this is some seal-all glue. You can use some epoxy glue too if you want, and just apply some on the back of your old sticker. And I'm going to glue it in the same position where it was before. And now everything looks original again. So it's that easy to install a fuel tank on your snowblower with a Tecumseh engine. Now you're ready to put fuel in your gas tank, and make sure to check for any leaks before you use your snowblower. And make sure that the fuel tank is on nice and tight, and that it's properly hooked on the bracket underneath it. And when it's on properly, you're going to see that the bracket is inside the groove on the fuel tank. Then you know that the tank is on nice and secure. So thanks again for watching my video. Remember that it's always free to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.